talk to you a little bit here about what the FAA and what the Obama administration did. They gave a win to Hamas. And I want you to listen to this and understand. Without an investigation, there was a rocket that landed. This is the way the press reported it. A rocket landed a mile away from the airport in Tel Aviv. They didn't report that it landed on a house. It landed on a house. How about we start with that one? You're always talking about how the rockets of Israel are landing on houses. How about the rocket from Hamas? It didn't land in an open field. It landed on a house. But it was a mile away from the airport, and immediately the federal government shuts down all planes going, all American planes going to Tel Aviv and Israel and Ben Gurion Airport. I know this for a fact that if you stop the airlines from going to Tel Aviv, you're choking Israel to death. This was a 24-hour suspension without any kind of investigation at all. And what they're doing is they're sending Israel a message. And let me just ask you, do you believe that if American airliners feel that it is unsafe to fly into Israel, that they would make that call? Is there any airliner, is there anybody, any pilot that wants to fly in? Shouldn't the airlines be the one, without any kind of pressure, saying, I don't want to fly in there because I don't feel safe? Wouldn't they do that? El Al is one of the safest airlines in the world, and Ben Gurion Airport is one of the safest airports in the world. Israel is not like Boston. Now, that's not to say that something, God forbid, could happen. But Israel knows that if an airliner, especially now, if an airliner was about to be shot out of the sky, it would be horrible for their country as well as ours. Horrible. Not just the humanitarian, but politically it would be horrible. And you might say that's counterintuitive. Glenn, that would make Hamas look. Really? Let's think this one through. Who would the media blame? Would the media blame Hamas or would the media blame Israel? I contend that already the media would have blamed Israel, but now that there has been a FAA moratorium, and the FAA is saying, hey, we're a little concerned about planes flying into Israel. What have they done? They have just set Israel up. So if, God forbid, something does happen, Israel would get the blame because the president and everybody else would say, see, they should have known better. They should have known better. And that's where it starts. But believe me, it quickly devolves into, it's the greedy Jew. All he wanted is his capitalist money. All he wanted was those planes coming in so he could keep the money flowing. Those greedy Jews did it again. Instead of saying, have you heard anybody saying about how Hamas should stop? Instead, we're stopping people from flying while we're lecturing the people who are trying to stop the people with the rockets. We're equating violence with violence. As if, I heard this argument yesterday, I think it's great, as if somebody who is trying to stop a rapist, that their violence is equal to the violence of the rapist. No, that's not the way it works. Could I ask you a question? Would JFK Airport or Newark Airport, if they were being bombed, would we have planes flying in there? Would our country say, yeah, you know what, Canadian Airlines, keep flying into Newark? Yeah, sure, you got a good chance of having, or would we say no? Would we know better? Would we have more compassion and say we don't want 300 dead people burning up like in Ukraine? Would we want that? Would we want our international flights from our biggest allies, especially knowing that even our biggest ally will put the blame on us and not the separatists? This is a direct attack on Israel by our country and by the FAA. And all in the name of safety? America, answer a few questions. Do you think the FAA and the DHS know how to keep our airports safe? Do you think our airports are safer than they were on 9/11? I would be hard-pressed to find anybody that would say yes. There's a lot of trappings, but do you really believe you're safer than you were on 9/11? Or do you really believe that this government, a government that didn't know that a country in revolution that was being taken over by Muslim extremists in Libya would be unsafe for an ambassador to fly into and go to a lightly guarded non-embassy in the heart of terrorist town on the anniversary of 9/11? If that government didn't see that one coming, you really believe they know what's happening in the airspace halfway around the world of another country? That they're better to judge it than that other country? If I hadn't seen the anti-Israel actions, the fruit of this government's labor in the last 6 years, I would say to you, they've got to know something that we don't know. They have to know something, but I don't. And especially seeing that this president continually says, and I quote, I get the news on TV. I got the news on TV just like you did. I got the news from TV just like you did. I get the news from TV just like the average person does. I didn't know about it until I saw it on the TV news. He says that all the time. So I can't give him credit that he knows something that I don't know. And if he does, his very intelligence organizations were the ones that said that whole attack on 9/11 by Muslim extremists, that was a video. That had nothing to do with extremism. Why would we listen to those advisors? So a message to Israel. Israel, hear me clearly. As an American citizen, I don't represent all Americans. I don't even come close to representing. I represent me. I'm sorry. I am really sorry. I am sorry to the Ukrainians as well. We have violated our oath to you to be your friends. We're not going to come over and fight your wars, but Israel, you don't need anybody to fight your wars. You seem to do a mighty good job on your own. Here's what I can offer. My prayers and my support. And I wish my country would support you. But don't think that our country is our government. It's not. Our country is set up unlike any other country in the world, even yours. Our country is we the people. And there's a good number of we the people, a lot of people, that Republican, Democrat, Independent, left, right, that support you. People that I don't agree with and they don't agree with me. We agree on this. We support your right to exist. We support your right as a Jew to live unmolested. We support your right to live in a state. Everybody is saying we need to have the UN try to come up with a solution. Everybody says we have to have the UN. What does the UN say? What does the UN say? What does the UN say? Well, why are all these people asking what the UN says? Well, because we have to have a global governance. We have to have a global community come together and agree on a solution. Well, the UN came up with a solution. You should be the most legitimate state ever created. Your borders should be the most legitimate of all time, because all those people who say we have to go to UN should be reminded that it was the UN that created your borders in the first place. That it was the UN and this beloved global body that put you in that space. You're just trying to live by the rules the world and that global body set up. You have a right to defend yourself. And dare I say it, none of us would have put up with this as long as you have. If Canada had in its charter that their goal was to destroy the United States of America and kill every American, as Hamas has in her charter, that they want to wipe Israel and all the Jews off the face of the earth, this is a no-brainer. You can't sit at a negotiating table when your whys are different. Why do you want peace? Well, because we want to just live as neighbors side by side and just get along so we can raise our children. Why do you want peace? well, I want peace because it furthers my goal to wipe them off the face of the earth and kill all the Jews. There is no peace there. There is no peace. But I have to tell you, if this were happening to us, and I know that Jon Stewart and everybody else can make a joke of that, and that's what they do. That's fine. We're here to talk as adults. If this were happening to us or any other country, we would have bombed that country into the Stone Age. Be it right or wrong, that's what most of us would have done. And while everybody in our country seems to deny that we have what we used to believe, American exceptionalism, that's not because we were born better than anybody else. It's because we had a belief in God. And our belief in God changed us. It's what made us charitable. It's what made us good. It's what made us great. So maybe we don't have American exceptionalism anymore. I beg to differ with that, but a lot of people don't believe that. Maybe you have an Israeli exceptionalism because your Israeli exceptionalism would come from the same source. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that teaches us to love one another, to be good to one another. That our best way to be a better man and to serve God is to serve our fellow man. And maybe that's why our rage would have bombed Canada into the Stone Age. But I've never seen Israel act out in rage. And boy, you have had reason. But you don't. You understood when you took the Temple Mount that God does not want bloodshed. You understood the sacred and the sacred nature of that land. And so, when you could have taken the Temple Mount, you'd have all sides around it. You didn't. Because you know that bloodshed is not always the answer. I dare say that the other side doesn't know that. But you knew that bloodshed isn't always the answer. Hear me, Israel. Sometimes, unfortunately, bloodshed is the only option left to a peace-loving people. I feel for the Palestinian people. I have met Palestinian people. We have working for us Palestinians. There's a difference between those who have been wrapped up in hatred. That's not Palestinian. You'd be wrapped up in hatred and be an American. I feel for the Palestinian people and their children. I believe you do too. But you know, and the rest of the world refuses to face that they are being lied to by their clerics and their politicians. And unfortunately, in many ways, we are too. It isn't hard to figure out who the bad guys are in this. When people are handing out sweets and candy and celebrating in the streets when there's a kidnapping of a soldier, a kidnapping of anybody. If you were handing out sweets and a kidnapping of a kid from the Gaza Strip, I would say the same thing about you. That's despicable. They did the same thing to us, but too many Americans have forgotten. They did exactly the same thing to us when our World Trade Centers came down and all humans on the planet were sorrowful. All humans on the planet mourned with us and stood with us. They, the Palestinians, were handing out sweets and candy in the streets exactly the way they're doing it to you now. The Palestinians have to stop the insanity themselves. Until they do, you have to protect yourselves. We pray for a peace, and we pray for the end of bloodshed as quickly as possible. But don't let us pull the rug from underneath you. Remain standing. As you now know, even your closest allies won't stand with you unflinching in your hour of need. But know this, many Americans and many all over the world still stand with you, and we will stand with you to the end. While charity has helped you build hospitals that take in friends and foe, our charity, Mercury One, has done the same. We have helped you build those hospitals, and today we're launching another initiative. We're going to help your military as well. We are sending supplies for your military, for your sons and daughters who have been called into action and need flashlights, need blankets, need tents. Mercury One will deliver them. Quite honestly, I'm thinking about delivering them myself this weekend. While your sons and daughters are fighting, we refuse to stand by and let them be in need. While they are protecting the only land the Jew has ever owned, and the only land ever decreed not only by the United Nations, but by the only global authority I recognize, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.